Καλημέρα παιδιά, καλώς όρισες σε ακόμη έναν London Open Live Trading και Analysis Session. Ονομάζομαι Κυριακός και Κυριακίδης, θα είμαι μαζί σου για την επόμενη μία ώρα. Η αγορά ξεκίνησε να κινείται, θα δούμε μαζί Bitcoin, EURUSD, GBPUSD, θα μπούμε μαζί ευκαιρίες και μείνε μέχρι το τέλος, γιατί θα σου δείξω για έναν challenge το οποίο ξεκινούμε σε λίγες μέρες, όπου θα επιχειρήσουμε με το εργαλείο τεχνητής νοημοσύνης μας να δεκαπλασιάσουμε έναν μικρό κεφάλαιο. Πάμε να δούμε το session πρώτα που βλέπω κάθε πρωί με το μέντορα μου και τα λέμε σε λίγο.
So basically, we had this coin heist set up, and that was running for the 1 to 2. Fantastic. Now, with this swing setup that we had on Tuesday night, well, Monday night, from Monday to Tuesday, eventually that was an invalidation. Then we had another swing setup yesterday right here that eventually was an invalidation. So in your portfolio, you will be minus 2R. Holding that coin heist setup, eventually we were at break even. So you can say, oh, but then the swing system is consuming all the benefits from coin heist. Not at all, because treating them independently, they will eventually give you an extremely well result independently in the long run. In the short term, one hedges the other, but in the long run, both give a fantastic result. So no, one is not consuming the results from the other. Hold on 1 second, because as you guys see right here, pound is on its way. So give me 1 second. I also have to activate one account on the cup here. We have 2 minutes, so we're good. Nice. This is the pound on my account. The level of the invalidation. As you guys know, I always place the invalidation based on my broker. So for my 5, 3, 4, 5. Nice. Beautiful. Now let's see. When we have the breakout. Long story short, all right, for the cycle of trades. Now we can just remove all of this. We can remove everything. Yeah, we can remove everything. Also this. Boom. And now we just go for the new structure. We have this as the H4 significant. This is now our H4 significant, which gets everything way better because we have a shorter range for the trades. Now I get into my dilemma. This is from back testing. Well, whatever. Anyways, I can be for hours right here trying to find that drawing. Whatever. So H4 significant low that makes a high. 5 more minutes for the pound. trying to find continuations. That's basically it. Or 4 hours making another higher high and then having a break of structure on the 4 hours. We really get into that position right now. All right, validation hit for the ones that were holding the Bitcoin setup. That's interesting. We were almost hitting the exit too, but it is what it is. Yeah, let's remove this and this and this. Oops. And right here at 9 a.m. Fantastic. So let's mark up the 50. Done. Now in the 4 hours, let's see. We have pretty good areas. We have pretty good areas. Overall, when it gets here, if it does, that could give pretty good reactions. Just to say visual representation. Also, 4 hours internal, it's pretty clear. Exactly here. The H4 internal will be on that level. Nice. So yeah, that's basically it, guys. That's pretty much it. What are we waiting for right now? Nothing. Literally nothing. Only this MSB on the pound. But swing setup on Bitcoin, done. M5R on Bitcoin, cooked. MSBs on the Euro, nothing. Swing setup on the Euro, waiting. So yeah, we're waiting also for this one. On the pound, swing setup, waiting for exit or invalidation. MSB waiting for it. So right now we are in a position where the only thing we can do is wait, basically. We have 40 more seconds for this specific level. $30 seconds. So watch out. Watch out. Remember that we wait for the break and close to happen. 15 seconds. Five seconds. All right, sending it. So candle close done. Now waiting for the retest. Let's see. It's almost. Forgot. Yeah, tapped 0.1 pips. I usually do that when I remember. It's not on the strategy at all. All right. That's not on the strategy at all. But I usually like to enter like 0.1 earlier. But yeah, done. Good. Retest on. Perfect. Great. Let's put this back to normal. 114. Let's put this on the right as always. And let's set up some alerts. So 9.2 was the exit one. $34 was the, well, 35.35 was the invalidation. I actually put that at 35.34. And the exit to 746. But the exit on the app is 7.5. Fantastic. So there we go with 5 alerts straight away. Oh snap, I'm in the 4 minutes time frame. I'm in the 4 minutes time frame. Oh my goodness. All right, guys. Apologies for that. Yeah, time to cut. Time to cut. I just closed. Send a message on the chat. All right. Yeah, I was in the 4 minutes time frame. Nice. Oh, even Bram was telling me. Even Bram was telling me that I was on the M4. Thanks, brother. Just saw that. All right. Interesting situation. But yeah, that's the smart thing to do. All right. Even myself, right? Let's analyze. Even myself right now, right here, I was with the thoughts. All right, let's let it run. Let's let it run, hoping that it goes lower. But in reality, your logical mind must say, what is the smartest thing to do? Right? What is the smartest thing to do? What is the perfect result for the trade? The perfect result for the strategy is not even executing this trade, if that makes sense. Right? It's not even executing. So you can say, all right, let's close it right here with a bit of a loss, or what pretty much every trader does, which is let's wait for the price to tap again into the entry level so I can close it at break even so I don't lose anything. That's what most of the traders do. And this is a natural mistake. I mean, you're a human. If you don't want to have these mistakes, just program an expert advisor that trades for you, and that's it. But you are a human, and you will have these mistakes every once in a while. This is completely normal. Doesn't matter how much time you have trading, you will have these mistakes. So when they happen, you have to know how to basically react to them. I learned a lot about these things trading M1. Trading M1, the market IQ was developed so fast. And these are the lessons. If you execute a trade that is not valid, right? And it's a little bit in drawdown because it rejected so fast, you close it anyways. You don't wait for price to tap into the level again. Simply because the trade should not be executed anymore. Then if it goes lower and it goes active, fantastic. But even if the price was in the right direction, let's say it was right here. and I realized it was not valid, I will be closing it anyways, because the trade should not even be executed in the first place. So always, I mean, take notes of this, guys. This is a very, very valuable lesson right here. Very valuable lesson. If the trade should not have been executed, close it. Doesn't matter where it is, and wait for your setup to happen, right? Because like I said, it's a natural mistake, and you have to know how to react to those mistakes. All right. Now, moving on. Let's go to the channel. Let's set an alert right here. Let's go over coin heist first of all. As you guys know, we were on this coin heist long right here, and the one-to-one took long to happen, right? It happened pretty much right here. So until this point, market didn't give you the one-to-one, and then, well, oops, invalidation was actually right here. So it gave you the one-to-one right here. I was like, what the hell? Yeah, it gave you the one-to-one right here. So if you're following the standard protocol, you will be either taking 50% volume right here or doing nothing, and then waiting for the 1 to 2. Now, if you're following the advanced protocol, you will be moving to break even at the 1 to 1, and then exiting at the candle of the opposite direction. So in that case, if you're following the advanced protocol, you will be actually taking these two setups. So let's break them down. When this bearish arrow happens, you close the trade. So it will be pretty much around the break even, all right? 1 to 0.51. So if you took this long and you're following the advanced protocol, which you know is closing the setup when the arrow of the opposite direction appears and moving to break even at the 1 to 1, you will be getting out with half R in this setup. Not bad at all. And then this bearish arrow happens also with the bearish candle. So this is your breakout level. Boom. That's the breakout. There it happens. Break and close. Invalidation right here. And it will not be giving you the 1 to 1. So it will have been an invalidation if you're following the advanced protocol. Now, the advantage to the advanced protocol is that you can actually have very good runners. We're going to break it down right now because we have one right here. Bullish arrow, bullish candle. You take the very next breakout level. Boom. Breakout happens. Invalidation to the previous higher low. And then you will be holding, well, at the 1 to 1, you will be moving to break even. And then you will be waiting right now for the next bearish arrow. Now, the next bearish arrow can happen whenever the market wants to, because it can now skyrocket and keep trading up. Then the 50 EMA will go higher. Then price will trade lower. Whenever the rest of the indicators align, you will be able to get out, and boom, you have a 1 to 3. Perhaps it runs even further and you get a 1 to 5, a 1 to 10. Or it just melts and you get out at break even. So that's the only disadvantage. That's the only disadvantage of the advanced protocol. Compared to the 2R that you got from this long alone with the simple protocol, which is full volume to the 1 to 2. If you're new, you can take 50% at the 1 to 1, 50% at the 1 to 2. But if you're advanced, the simple protocol, 1 to 2, full volume, period. But if you're using the advanced protocol, you will be right now in minus 0.5. But yeah, with the possibility to get a runner. If you rely only on this strike, you could just, you know, do the full volume. If you don't rely on this strike only, and you use different strikes, you could think about the advanced protocol. It also depends on your ability to hold the trades. Some people will say, oh, I'm not willing to take this so long. I mean, hold this for a few days. No. Some of you want to actually have quick setups. So perhaps you want to get out full volume at the 1 to 1, which in some cases, this can even be held for more. But this was almost for 2 days, right? So even the simple protocol can give you a swing. It's not the most common scenario, but it can. So just remember, you have the simple protocol and the advanced protocol. The simple protocol, if you're new, is 50% on the 1 to 1, 50% on the 1 to 2. Now, the simple protocol, if you're an advanced student, is full volume at the 1 to 2. Now, the advanced protocol per se, shout out to Mr. Claudio Mambo, is 1 to 1 break even, full volume at opposite arrows direction. If you're on a long, like here, you're waiting for the next bearish arrow. All right. Long story short, well, this is cleaner, I guess. Long story short, faster setups usually more steady equity curve. Now the advanced protocol relies on runners. If you don't have runners, the advanced protocol does nothing. But the runners happen. And it does a parabolic equity curve. Now, more likely to have big streaks of, this is important. This is the most important part. This protocol is more likely to have big streaks of break-evens and invalidations. That's why I say the equity curve of the simple protocol, more likely for the advanced, all right, will be like a steady equity curve. All right, it goes slowly to the upside. The advanced protocol, although it's still profitable, obviously, I will have to check on the data, but probably even more profitable than this one because it actually relies on runners. If your platform allows you to get the full R with low deviation, probably the advanced protocol will be even more profitable than the simple protocol. It will be more likely like this. Perhaps you start right here, you go slow, then you hit a runner. Then like this, then you hit a runner. Oops. Perhaps a big losing streak, but then boom, you hit a runner. So it will be actually more likely like this instead of like this. And you have to learn the difference of both. Which one you do? You can do one of those or even both, right? The option is opening both. Perhaps you do 1% risk standard and you say, Charlie, I want to do both. Well, if you want to do the simple protocol and the advanced protocol, you should treat them as different strategies, because while this one is losing, perhaps this one is winning, or at least at break even, because you are getting out on the 1 to 2, and perhaps right here you have a lot of 1 to 3s, 1 to 4s, but then the market goes in the opposite direction and the setup is closed at break even. That can happen. So actually they will be different strategies. So if you risk usually 1%, you have two options. Splitting that 1% between simple protocol and advanced protocol. So you will do 0.5% risk. 0.5% on the simple, 0.5% on the advanced protocol. You can do this. Now, does this make sense? No, in my opinion, it doesn't, because this is literally like opening a setup and closing 50% of the volume in the 1 to 2 and closing the other 50% of the volume when the arrow of the opposite direction appears. That's literally the same, right? What actually makes sense to me is if you do 1% per setup, you do 1% for the simple protocol and you do 1% for the advanced protocol. That's what actually makes sense to me. That's what actually makes sense to me. So you can get the most out of both. Because if you're doing this, you're automatically reducing by half the amount of gains and risk that you have. And like I said, they are different systems. There's literally the exact same technicals, but the way to manage both protocols makes the result so different in the short term that I believe that the most profitable thing, the most interesting thing to do is to treat them as completely different systems, meaning whole R for both. Well, whole R for each, if that makes sense. So yeah, that actually exposes a lot your portfolio, because we're getting into 1% for simple, 1% for advanced, and then all the rest of the setups, 1 for M5R, 1R for swings, and then the MSBs, right? So then you decide. But when I say this, it doesn't have to necessarily be 1%. When I say this is 1R. So let's change the percent for R. Is 1R. 1R for simple protocol, 1R for advanced protocol. So perhaps your 1R is 0.25% of the account. The 1R is the standard that you risk in every trade. So perhaps your 1R is 0.25% of the account, or 0.5% of the account, or 3% of the account. Who knows? Your R is the standard risk unit that you put in every trade. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Bram, good morning. Liam, Christine, Anne. All right, a few setups from Anne. No, it doesn't have to necessarily be Asian session. I mean, right here, you have this H4 internal, high that makes a low. The generic was bullish, internal is bearish. You take the trade right here. Exit is at the low of the internal, as always. Yeah, it is. No, it's not. No, it's not. If you missed this setup, you take it when the market taps again the entry level. The BOS right here is perfect. Yeah, the exit is also good. Right here we have the internal again, the BOS, fantastic. And again, the entry on the internal. Yes, this is correct. Good. Yesterday you explained the H4 internal of your Bitcoin structure. After the explanation, I'm still not really following. Could you explain again, please, with a couple of line drawings where you mark up the valid internal structures? Of course. I mean, it's just the low that made the higher high after the BOS. That's the generic range. Entry generic, bias opposite. Yeah, I mean, this is good. Line drawings that you asked for. If we have this is my high, this is my low. I don't really care how many impulses or whatever the structure may be. I mean, I don't care if the market goes in circles. I don't really care what happens. When the market breaks this lower high, this is my new high. Price is breaking the bearish structure and now it's turning bearish. It's turning bullish. So my generic structure is from this low to this high. And then the internal, yeah, will be wherever. But this is my low, this is my high. This is literally the exact same thing that happened in Bitcoin. Almost even going in circles. So imagine. But yeah, this is literally the exact same thing that happened in Bitcoin. Because right here, yeah, I did a PRP. Perhaps that's what's confusing you guys. Right here, did a PRP. But the PRP doesn't cancel the significant structure that we have from a significant lower high. I think that's what's confusing you guys, the PRP. But the PRP acts like an internal range, as always, right? It's always been the same. The PRP acts as an internal range. I had this in my notes, but explanation yesterday, I'm quite confused. All right. So, sell range, buy range internal. Yes, sir. BOS level, so trend switch starts here. H4 internal, yes, exactly. But yeah, this is the exact same thing. I mean, this is the lower high, this is the lower low. Yesterday, what I was breaking down is the generic range. Boom. This is the higher high, so this is my generic. Now, regarding the internal, exactly as you have right here. This is the switch to bearish, switch to bullish. So this is my higher low. You want to know something? It doesn't really even matter which one you take. This one or this one. it doesn't really even matter. If you have a doubt, if you have a question, take the one that gives you the sooner level. For example, this one, which will give you the entry sooner. And that's it. The expected value will be positive anyways. So don't overthink it. Next. Yes. I assume the BOS was made right here. So boom, there you go with your internal. When we have a rule of the third impulse with and without PRP, we have a PRP in the structure. So after the third leg, we can still aim for buys. When we have a generic entry, we can place it straight to the lower low, but at liquidity or one-to-one. Good question. It should be placed. It should be placed at the demand. But because of being a PRP, should be placed at the low. So if this was not a PRP and was, let's say, a significant BOS, but based on internal structure, you of course place it at the demand because it's actually a break off structure. The only thing is it's internal. But because of being a PRP, I've seen so many times taking the low because it's not built on a strong foundation. So the generic range wins by far. So yeah, this will be the correct one. But yeah, I've seen that so many times in back testing. So yeah, those are the details that you have to look for during the back testing also, when those patterns happen. It's a BOS because the pullback is built by a candle of the opposite direction, period. Black point, period. Don't overthink it. If you see a bullish candle, BOS, because it's to go bullish. PRP correct? No, because it has a bullish candle. Make it systematic. It must be objective. Yes, like I said, we had the exact same thing on Bitcoin previously. You can do that. You can do that. But at the end of the day, if you don't take the rule of the third impulse in consideration because you don't have a PRP or a bullish BOS, whatever, you do that on both. So if you see, it will balance out in the end. Look. And this is how probabilities and statistics work, guys. If you take the internal rule of the third impulse that we have right here in consideration as the exit, you will be getting out in both with less risk to reward. If you don't take it in consideration, you will be getting out at the low, but this one, for example, didn't hit yet. So perhaps this one hits invalidation and we have a +3. So in the end, the result will be pretty similar. And we're talking about 2 trades. In 1,000 trades, the result will be pretty much the same. Right? So I give you the tools, then you apply these tools as you want, or you just do what I do. Perhaps you forget to see if there is a rule of the third impulse. So it doesn't really matter if you forget to see if there is a rule of the third impulse against, because you're always looking for the BOS or the PRP and you forget to look for the rule of the third impulse against. So it doesn't really matter. Kenji, good morning. No, that was completely a mistake. Yeah, apologies, guys. And when it taps the entry level again, you consider not close at break even and letting it run anyway. Yeah. How did you manage your time? Very good question, Liam. When I was trading M1, I actually had a pretty small time window. And for example, that's one of the mistakes that I had, which was data snooping. That's when I learned the concept because of the mistake that I had. So initially on the M1, which was also with Euro, only with the Euro, I was not trading the pound back then. I was trading from 8 a.m. until 11, right? So that was, or until 11:30. That was around the time window. And I wanted to keep it short and concise because I was not willing to trade outside the laptop with the 1 minute. That was completely unthinkable. Trading that strategy with the phone, like I'm doing right now with the MSBs, with the swing system, even with M5R, it was completely unthinkable. So I had to be on the laptop. It doesn't matter. It didn't matter where I was, in a hotel, in the airport, at home, at whatever. I had to be on the laptop because the analysis and everything was so fast. And it got to a point where literally I was not doing anything else for 3-4 hours than just staring at the 1 minute candles. It was literally like that. Or I mean, no phone, literally nothing, absolutely nothing. I'm talking about literally staring at the candles and the MetaTrader on the laptop executing. So it built a lot of consistency. It built a lot of discipline, a lot of ability to focus on the charts and nothing else. So although the strategy eventually didn't end up properly, it gave the market IQ that I have today. And thanks to it, I can execute even way better on the strategies that I performed right now, because you always fall to the level of your training. A UFC champion cannot train with sparring partners that are worse than the fighter that he is fighting against. If you're fighting against someone that is taller than you, you have to spar with some people that is taller than the opponent that you will have, if that makes sense. A man will always fall to the level of his training. If you are constantly, I don't know, trading or back testing and a strategy that is in the 4 hours time frame, is very slow and everything, and then suddenly you jump on the 1 minute time frame to trade, your mind is going to blow up. Always fall to the level of your training. But if you're training with things that are always more difficult than the real game, then the real game will be easy. So the activities are only difficult because of a skill issue. It's not because of the task is difficult per se, it's because you're not good enough. And full self-accountability. For example, Liam, you climb buildings, right? If you all day long you were climbing small trees from the kindergarten, and then you jump into I don't know, climbing a building in Hong Kong, you will be like, what the hell is this? But if you're constantly training yourself with tall buildings, for example, then you go into a tree and you say, what is this? I can do this with my eyes closed, right? So you will always fall to the level of your training. Very important lesson right there. Now, how did I manage my time? Right here, I had the mistake of data snooping. What is data snooping? It's refining too much your strategy without enough data. So I thought 100 samples was enough back then. And I was doing a lot of changes with a small sample size. So I refined the time window from 4 hours to 30 minutes. So it was from 8 to 8:30 and some days from 8 to 9 a.m. Now, in some models, I had 30 sample size. In other models, I had 50 sample size. Say thanks if I had 100 sample size in other models. What happens with that? Yeah, it was on a big time window or a big time span because it was around 2 years of data. But in those very specific models, it was only with less than 100 samples. So they were good changes, but they were not backed with a big amount of data. If they were like 500 samples, 800 samples, I will be super confident now to do those changes. But with only 100 or even less than 100, it doesn't make any sense. So yeah, it got to a point at the end of the stage of M1 where I was trading so low amount of time every single day. It felt pretty well because going from 4 hours a day to now 30 minutes a day, again, you fall back to the level of your trading. If you are coming from 4 hours a day and now you're trading 30 minutes a day, that's easy. So the focus increased, the productivity and the way to execute the setups increased. I had 100% execution rate in those times because it was obviously fairly easy, and the trade frequency also got pretty small compared to the 4 hours a day. But eventually, that's how I managed my time with the M1. I was never executing outside of my laptop, so I made the strategy fit to the times that I was able to get on the laptop. If your 1R is 3%, but cannot risk more than 3% in your platform, you just split that 1R to both systems. All right, I will check the question again. If your 1R is 3%, but cannot risk more than 3% in your platform, you split that 1R to both systems. Okay. You have to make sure if the 3% in your platform is per trade or if it is as a whole. So if it is 3% as a whole, you should check and watch out to say, okay, this 3%, if it is as a whole, you should make it 1.5% per trade. If it's 3% per trade, you can do 3% per trade. Now, 3% per trade is too much. You will see how you manage. Perhaps those are very small accounts and you're willing to do such a high risk because as a whole, it's not a big percentage of your whole portfolio. So if you rely only on one account, you cannot risk 3%. But if you rely on multiple accounts, let's say you have a copy trader and you have a portfolio of multiple accounts, perhaps not this many, but then you can going to risk 3% on, which in reality, looking at the slide of that account is 3%. So in that case, it's not a bad idea. Or perhaps you don't have this many, but perhaps you have 3 accounts or 4 accounts. And in one account, you go to 0.5%. In one account, you go to 3. In one account, you're doing 1. And in one account, you do another 1, for example. So you have 2 standards, 1 low, and 1 big. Perhaps big percentage, but perhaps this is the smallest account. Perhaps this is the account where you're withdrawing. And these are the accounts that you have as compound effect. Or vice versa. Perhaps this one is the one that you're compounding and you're withdrawing from those 2. So you will see how you manage your accounts, but keep it in mind. Yes, sure. I was about to forget.
Ωραία, παιδιά, λοιπόν, πρέπει να το προχωρήσουμε και επειδή είχα πω για το challenge το οποίο ξεκινούμε, παιδιά, μέσα στις επόμενες ημέρες έναν Bitcoin challenge όπως στόχος είναι να δούμε εάν μπορούμε να δεκαπλασιάσουμε έναν μικρό λογαριασμό με το εργαλείο τεχνητής νοημοσύνης το οποίο έχουμε. Τώρα, το συγκεκριμένο challenge θα ξεκινήσει στις επόμενες μέρες. Απλά κάνουμε τώρα τα trainings των μαθητών οι οποίοι δεν έμαθαν να χρησιμοποιούν το συγκεκριμένο εργαλείο. Έχουμε βγάλει νέο bootcamp το οποίο εκπαιδεύουμε για το συγκεκριμένο scanner full αναλυτικά, έτσι ώστε να είμαστε όλοι έτοιμοι να το ξεκινήσουμε. Πώς θα μοιάζει το συγκεκριμένο challenge? Θα μπει μέσα στην κοινότητα μας. Καταρχάς, πρέπει να είσαι μαθητής, μαθητρία της Ακαδημίας μας. Με το που είσαι μαθητής, μαθητρία της Ακαδημίας μας, θα μπει μέσα στην επίσημη κοινότητα και θα έρθεις να εκπαιδευτείς μέσα στο Coin Heist Bootcamp. Μόλις τελειώσεις το Coin Heist Bootcamp, σήμερα το ανεβάσαμε αυτό. Είναι 9 βίντεο. Θα ξεκινήσεις να κάνεις την πρακτική σου μέσα στα scanners, το chat μας και θα ανταλλάζουμε απόψεις όπως κάνουμε εδώ πέρα με τους μαθητές. Και μόλις τελειώσεις με την πρακτική σου, θα ανακοινώσουμε την επίσημη έναρξη του συγκεκριμένου challenge και το πώς θα μοιάζει είναι ότι όλοι όσοι θα συμμετέχουμε σε αυτό το challenge θα έχουμε έναν λογαριασμό 100 ευρώ, 150, 200, 300, 500, whatever, παίζει ρόλο το ποσό και θα αναλύουμε μαζί όλες τις πιθανές ευκαιρίες που υπάρχουν σε αυτό το εργαλείο. Θα ρισκάρουμε 3% στην κάθε ιδέα και θα πηγαίνουμε να κρατούμε όλα τα κέρδη με τον προχωρημένο τρόπο διαχείρισης των ιδεών. Ο σκοπός είναι να κάνουμε μεγάλο compound των κερδών του κεφαλαίου μας με αυτό το εργαλείο. Εγώ το τι θα πρότεινα, που θα δεις και στα μαθήματα, καταρχάς να ανοίξεις με 2 λογαριασμούς. Στον έναν το λογαριασμό που έχουμε 100 ευρώ για να κάνουμε τον απλό τρόπο διαχείρισης για να βγάζουμε λίγα λεφτά, να βγάζουμε φασούλι με το φασούλι και το challenge actually που είναι αυτό το οποίο θα δουλέψουμε με αυτό το οποίο ξεκινούμε με τον bitcoin, ακόμη ένα λογαριασμό λίγο πιο μεγάλο το ποσό ή το ίδιο. Εάν θέλεις να συμμετέχεις τώρα σε αυτό το challenge, για να ξεκινήσεις εννοείται πρέπει να έχεις τουλάχιστον 200 ευρώ για να ξεκινήσεις την εταιρεία μας, για να έχεις πρόσβαση στο συγκεκριμένο εργαλείο και να έχεις πρόσβαση μέσα στην κοινότητα και τον bootcamp και προφανώς να έχεις και λεφτά να βάλεις στο trading λογαριασμό σου. Κάτω από αυτό το βίντεο υπάρχει η φόρμα όπου θα δούμε εάν πληρείς τα κριτήρια για να ξεκινήσεις μέσα στην εταιρεία μας. Ξανά όμως, πρέπει να έχεις τα 200 ευρώ και αλλά και να τα έχεις μπορεί να μην εγκρίνεσαι να ξεκινήσεις μαζί μας. Συμπλήρωσε το ερωτηματολόγιο και μέσα σε 48 ώρες κάποιος από την ομάδα μας θα δει τις απαντήσεις σου και αν τελικά εγκρίνεσαι να ξεκινήσεις μαζί μας, θα καλέσουμε ένα τηλεφώνημα να σου εξηγήσουμε πώς θα λειτουργήσει το challenge και να ξεκινήσουμε. Παιδιά, καλών υπόλοιπων, ο Θεός μαζί σας και τα λέμε στο επόμενο.